so the next one is mine. So I invite myself to speak. I'm talking a little bit about the tradeability of renewable methane, renewable gases in the future. So you have heard the presentations about today's situation in the United Kingdom and in France. I'm looking a little bit into what we can expect for the future. First, let me shortly introduce our association. You may not all know yet. The European Renewable Gas Registry is a non-profit international association registered in Brussels in 2016. We have today 26 members from 14 countries, and we are located in Brussels. Our main focus is distribution of renewable gases through the European natural gas network all over Europe. These are the logos of the members. But I like to underline that this association is a joint undertaking of the biogas and renewable gas industries. And this is strengthened by the fact that several TSOs and DSOs from the gas sector have already joined ERGaR as members, from Lithuania, from Denmark, from Spain, from Switzerland, from France, Netherlands, and also from Sweden. In addition, we have ERGaR members from organizations who are very closely linked to the natural gas industry in Austria, in Belgium, in Ireland, and also in Switzerland. And we think that this close link to the natural gas TSOs and the DSOs is absolutely important, because these organizations are the most reliable direct source of information when it comes to injecting or withdrawing methane or any gas from the grids. So when we talk about biomethane trade, that we focus on biomethane, there are really very many different forms of moving and trading this product. The very first one, I don't want to speak anything more about that, because this is when you deliver the product in compressed or liquefied form directly from the production to the consumer. This is a very simple administration, exactly the same as the liquid biofuels. The second one is a bit more complicated, what I call a physical delivery. This means that you administer the movement of the gas, of the renewable gas in the natural gas networks exactly the same way as natural gas is being administered. So you look at this as a gas production unit. You book capacities, you pay the transportation fees, and you handle it exactly the same way as gas. And yes, we cannot track the molecules, but it is still exactly following the physical movements of the gas. The third possibility is something completely different. Then we are handling and trading certificates, which are in most cases detached from the physical product. And especially the guarantees of origins are very interesting in this point of view, which are regulated in the new directive. Another possibility which ERGaR is working on is something different. We are mass balancing physical volumes in the natural gas network, and by doing this, I will tell it a little bit later in more details, we are actually establishing a physical cross-border market. When it comes to physical pipeline deliveries, as I mentioned, there are cases which are, for example, from the UK to the Netherlands, from Hungary to Western Europe. There are deliveries to Sweden, there are deliveries to the UK. In all these cases, there is a physical transportation transaction documented with the natural gas transmission or distribution system operators. This kind of transactions are enabled legally by one of the rulings of the European Court of Justice, because the European Court of Justice, in this well-publicized case between E.ON Sweden and the Swedish Energy Agency, has concluded that you can move biomethane via the interconnected natural gas pipelines provided proper mass balancing administration is in place. So the court said that you can keep the quality, the renewable, sustainable quality of the product, even if it is forwarded, blended with natural gas. And here are some of those examples. You see that these volumes are really very small, but interesting. It is about certain movements of biomethane via the natural gas networks to Sweden, from Germany, the Netherlands, and Denmark. And there are, interestingly, also registered supplies of biomethane from the continent to the United Kingdom under the Renewable Transport Fuel obligations and certification schemes. There are small volumes, and characteristically, these are all volumes related to biomethane, which is produced on organic waste streams. And the reason why these transactions have taken place is very simple, because the Renewable Transport Fuel obligation and certification system gives a higher value to organic waste-based biomethane. When it comes to certificates, I suggest you to have a look at this table, which tries to explain a little bit difference between biofuel certificates and guarantees of origin. Because people who are not dealing with our product day to day, they tend to mix the terms. And we talk certificates when it is not really a certificate, and we say guarantee of origin, which is not exactly the guarantee of origin. As you see here, the major difference between what I call a biofuel certificate as compared to the guarantee of origin, but they have different purpose. The biofuel certificates are connected, directly connected with certain government biofuel requirements, meeting government biofuel requirements by means of applying those certificates. On the other hand, the guarantees of origin, as defined in the new directive, have a sole purpose of informing the final customer of the renewable origin. So as you see, the purpose and the application of those documents are completely different. The biofuel certificates are not regulated on a European level because they are all linked to the national biofuel regulations. The guarantees of origin are not yet regulated, but they are very clearly addressed in the new directive in Article 19 of the RED II. The important distinction is that the RED II makes it an obligation or a commitment to the member states and member states' governments to issue guarantees of origin upon a request by the producer. So for guarantees of origin, we will have a situation after the new directive is in place, when every country there will be one organization which is mandated, designated by the government to issue those documents. For the biofuel certificates, we have no standards. The guarantees of origin are subject to a standard. And this standard, the SAN-EN 16325, today is in place and valid for electricity guarantees of origin. But according to the directive, the standard will be extended to cover renewable gases. A few examples of those biofuel certificates. In Germany, the regulation is committing fuel suppliers above a certain volume, I think it's 500,000 liters per year, to prove a certain reduction of their GHG emission, or the total GHG emission of the fuel they are marketing or placing on the market. And this number is increasing next year up to 6%, and the fuel suppliers can meet the requirement either by purchasing biofuels or by purchasing certificates which are called the THG, the greenhouse gas certificates in Germany. In Italy, there are the certificates which are called CIC. There are also biofuel certificates, You can acquire them by producing biomethane, and the system actually gives quite a financial stability for biomethane producers, especially when they are producing advanced biomethane. In the Netherlands, these are called renewable energy units. The previous name was biotickets, probably you heard them as biotickets. These are, again, directly linked to the commitments by the fuel suppliers. The fuel suppliers should either buy biofuels, have a certain share of biofuels in their total mix, or they can meet these commitments by purchasing these certificates. In that sense, in all of these cases, both the German certificates, the Italian certificates, the Dutch certificates have a given value, have a very specific market value which is very closely linked to the national regulation. For example, in the United Kingdom, you can meet renewable transport fuel obligations by purchasing renewable transport fuel certificates. If you do not have enough certificates, you pay a penalty. And that penalty is actually giving the floor, not the ceiling, sorry, the maximum price of those certificates. Because for a fuel supplier, it makes sense to buy certificates as long as the certificates are cheaper than the penalty. The same is in Germany. If you don't meet your requirements as a fuel supplier on GHG emission reduction, you pay a penalty, which is quite heavy. It is 470 euros per ton of CO2. A few words about guarantees of origin. This is something for the future. It is, as I mentioned, are introduced in the new directive, and they will have a very important role for our industry after the new directive becomes in force. I have a few remarks for these guarantees of origin. According to the definition, these guarantees of origin are meant to inform the final consumer about the renewable origin of the product, which means that those guarantees of origin have a value, if any, only for a final consumer. Now it depends on those final consumers how far they are ready to pay for those guarantees of origin. And in that sense, obviously, any consumer, let it be any consumer from a chemical industry or for a heating sector or for a municipality, potentially transportation, which is a little bit more difficult in terms of administration. But any consumer will be able to acquire guarantees of origin, biomethane, and later on other renewable gas guarantees of origin on the market. And according to the new directive, this is not going to be limited to national borders. Yeah? A guarantee of origin issued by a member state government or by a designated body of a member state government must be accepted in other member states. So the directive automatically is creating the framework for moving, transferring, applying those guarantees of origin all over Europe. Now the question how far those guarantees of origin will have a value and how far you can promote the production of biomethane by the guarantees of origin is very much dependent on the future behavior of the consumers. And I'm talking about not governments and not government support schemes, but consumers, economic operators, companies, individuals who are consuming gas. We have been looking at this topic several times, and what we see is that there are already consumers in Europe who are ready to pay certain higher price for green gas. There are not too many, and they are not necessarily ready to pay the full difference between the cost of biomethane and the price of natural gas. But the guarantees of origin are addressing exactly this situation. The expectation is that there will be enough consumers who will be interested and ready to pay for the green value in the future. My point here is what you see on the slide is that this is not replacing the need for political actions, because we cannot expect that this is going to finance investments. You cannot really expect that voluntary readiness of consumers in the future will be sufficient enough to finance investments today. And this is why I'm saying that we need much more than guarantees of origin. So the guarantees of origin will be a useful tool. It will definitely open a lot of market potential, including for every potential applications of biomethane. And you have heard the previous presentation about the UK and France, how those guarantees of origin are already getting more and more accepted. But this is not yet the sufficient measure to have new production. ERGaR is doing something different. We have developed a scheme which is based on mass balancing. And the idea is that we want to make it possible that biomethane can be moved from any part of Europe via the European natural gas network to any other country in Europe which is connected via the pipeline. And this is achieved by means of applying the mass balancing methodology. The mass balancing in that respect means that we are balancing physical transactions. We are balancing physical injection transaction in the country of production with the transaction in the country of consumption. As you understand, this is all under the approach that the European natural gas network is treated as a single logistical facility. And we have had quite some communication with the Commission and with the consultants of the Commission on this subject. So we have now a common understanding that the European natural gas network can be seen as a single logistical facility as long as that network consists of interlinked pipelines. So to give an example, Finland today is not considered to be part of the system because there is no physical link presently, but the UK is obviously because it has a physical link. This is an example to show what we mean. We consider the natural gas network as a single logistical facility, which means that you register and document the injection, for example, consignment 101, and there is a matching consignment at the other end of the network, which should match the previous one in terms of volume and quality. Correspondingly to what I said before, ERGaR has developed two schemes. The one on the left is the mass balancing scheme, which is handling sustainable qualified transport biofuel, qualified biomethane transported and moved via the European natural gas network. This fits the regulations and requirements of Articles 27 to 30 in the new directive specific to biofuels and biomethane. And in this scheme, we are handling only sustainably qualified product, and we have already applied for a recognition by the European Commission for this scheme. So we hope that next year we will have this recognition and we will have an administrative solution of moving sustainability qualified biomethane all over Europe. On the right side, you see the guarantees of origin scheme, which is designed under different requirements. This is, as I explained to you, what guarantees of origins are about. It's Article 19 of the new directive. Here you have a much less administrative requirements because you don't need to handle the question and the requirements of sustainability. And this is something which obviously is designed to serve any other applications than transportation fuel applications. In that respect, we are also very well advanced, and we will have a hub operating very soon. To summarize shortly, back to my first slide, when we talk about direct physical deliveries, it may remain, but it is so small, it will always remain local, that has nothing to do with the European market. The physical deliveries in the natural gas pipelines, as you remember, this was the administration of physical movements along natural gas. This is too complicated to cover the whole of Europe for thousands of small producing units. This is not going to work. The guarantees of origin, we are absolutely sure that they will be a common European market for guarantees of origin. And with all the benefits and the weaknesses of guarantees of origin I was speaking about. The mass balancing in the European natural gas network, which we are working on, this is what we think is the right approach when we want to establish a European market for biomethane as a commodity. And that's the end of it. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you. Ulrich von Tröstbank from Leighton. Just a quick question concerning the comparison to biofuels and the integration and the parallelism to biofuels. With the biofuel system, you have a certification system and accredited certifiers. There is mass balancing. There is the mandate on the one hand side. There is the ticket trade which is between two parties, which is not really tradable. How do you see this comparison to the biofuel market now with the biomethane? Because somehow they are interconnected, but then when I hear you talking about biomass, the approach is slightly different to biofuels, I understand. To the basically the comparison to the mass balancing system.
Yes. So I think it is not really different. When you take these examples in Germany, Netherlands, and the UK, we are part of the same regulation. So the greenhouse gas reduction commitments in Germany can be met by any biofuel, including biomethane. You can have a HBE in the Netherlands by any biofuels, including biomethane. And also in the UK, you can have a renewable transport fuel certificates for any biofuel, including. But that means for that biomethane must be sustainability certified, must meet the sustainability requirements, certified in a way how it is prescribed in the directive by recognized certification bodies, and that sustainability certification is directly connected with the mass balancing methodology. So you cannot handle biofuel, either liquid or gases, without sustainability and without mass balancing. But in that respect, what we have been doing and what we are aiming at is to interpret or to adjust our administration in order to fit those requirements which were originally designed for liquid biofuels. So in order to be able to have access to those markets, or the biofuel markets, biocertificate markets, we must meet the same requirements. And Italy is a little bit different. The difference really is that in other countries it is one basket, all biofuels, including biomethane. The Italian system is biomethane specific. So you cannot meet biomethane commitments by other biofuels. Any other questions? So if not, I announce a break. We will meet here back at 16:15 for the 3 more even more interesting presentations. So I welcome you back at 16:15 in the same